comments, and then Dr. Sollers will introduce our speaker.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome this morning. It is great to see you here today. These are always great events, great fun, opportunity to see one another, and an opportunity to hear from a person who brings us an inspirational story and shares with us some of the things that made their experience, in this case his experience, special here at Washburn. This past weekend, Susan and I, Susie, Randall, Scott, I saw out here, we were in Tucson and Phoenix with alumni. We do an alumni event at noon on Saturday in Tucson, in Phoenix, and go down and do one on Sunday in Tucson, and then stay around and visit a little bit with folks. Usually, it is wonderful to be out there because it's cold here. This last weekend, not so much. It was warm here. Come back, now it's cold here. But in those hours that we spent with a lot of alumni out there, we hear these wonderful stories. Stories which each one of you have as well. Stories that make your time here at Washburn come to life for those that you share them with. And it really epitomizes what this experience is at Washburn over the decades that it lasts. It's not just when you're in school, but what that experience is and how it transformed your lives and how we continue today to transform students' lives. Today, that is simply another example that we will have of how that works and why it happens and how it happens. And you share your stories with those that are here with us today. Washburn's a special place. Washburn's unique. And I visit with other presidents and universities around the country. We have something very unique here. And we want to maintain that. And the way we do it is with your participation through the Alumni Association. We appreciate you coming to these events. Thanks for coming out this morning. Thank you.
Good morning. We are pleased that we're able to co-sponsor this with the Alumni Association, and I'm glad that so many students came out this morning. Apparently some of them were offered the chance to put off an exam until next week. So if you want to get them out of bed early, put off the exam. I had the opportunity Sunday through Tuesday this week to visit another school on the other side of the country, in a place called Rome, Georgia, a place called Berry College, as part of our accreditation peer review process, and I was on their team and got to visit that school. And it was interesting thinking about the similarities and a few of the differences between Washburn and Berry. They have about 2,000 students. We have about 7,000 students. They have 25,000 acres of property, and we don't. But they were some similarities. 90% of their students work. A lot of them work on campus, and that's kind of the thing they do there. But I was like, well, most of our Washburn students are working either on campus or off campus as they go through. I got to look at the test scores and the results and those type of things, and our students are very comparable. You know, we score in the top 20% year in, year out. They score in the top 20% year in, year out. Well, then I looked at the price. You know, they charge maybe 3 times what we charge here at Washburn. Well, as you drive across the Berry campus, they had these deer frolicking in the meadows around the campus. I mean, it's almost like, some of you remember the movie The Truman Show. Remember the movie The Truman Show? And as we were driving by, I saw someone was on a microphone somewhere saying, "Cue the deer, cue the deer." These deer would just pop up at these opportune times. And so Dr. Farley, I came back, and they have their endowment's about 4 or 5 times the size of ours. Like I said, they charge 2 or 3 times as much. So I took 2 things away. Number one, Dr. Farley, if we wanted to solve our budget problems, we could raise tuition greatly if we just got a few deer on campus. But the other thing I took away from that experience was the reminder that, you know, education doesn't have to be, you know, education's expensive. But good education doesn't have to be extremely expensive, and thanks to the support of the folks in Shawnee County, Topeka, the state of Kansas, our great alumni and our other community supporters, our students who are paying their part of the tuition, and some good management from above, we're able to offer a product that's just as good at a much cheaper price. And Colby probably thinks that's a good thing, I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
He got his business degree here, in any case. Colby received his bachelor's degree in 1994 and was a member of Phi Delta Theta. And many of the most notorious members of Phi Delta Theta are here this morning. He's worked at Walgreen Company for 22 years. He began working for Walgreens here in Topeka when he was a student, working his way up the corporate ladder, and is currently Director of Pharmacy and Retail Operations for the company. In 22 years, he's been at Walgreens. The company has grown from a neighborhood drug store to a chain of more than 8,000 locations. Competes in the online marketplace and is offering personal services like walk-in health clinics in many locations. Colby is an executive committee member for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and a member of the American Diabetes Association. He was recognized by the ADA for his fundraising efforts in 2003 and by Crime Stoppers as Corporate Citizen of the Year in 2014. Colby's married and has 2 daughters. His wife, Glenda Fries, is also a Washburn alumni. They live in Liberty Township, Ohio, which is near where I grew up, not too far away. And in any case, please join me in welcoming back to campus Colby Fries.
As some of you may recall from our first wake up back in September, we had a different little format where we had our speakers come and sit out here and in this little living room set up. And too many familiar faces out there for Colby to come down. He's going to stay behind the podium. He's kind of chickened out, the little turkey, but too many Phi Deltas in the audience and a lot of familiar faces, which I know he's delighted to see all. But I'm going to ask questions. Colby's going to answer them. He's just going to stay behind the podium. So I'm going to step down and we will begin our dialogue here. So, Colby, tell us what qualities or traits did you learn at Washburn that have helped you during your career?
Okay, so Susie is correct. I did chicken out as I started seeing familiar faces, whether it's friends that I went to high school with, peers that I used to work with, friends from college, my parents' friends, former teachers, professors. Yeah, I got a little bit nervous, and I figured if I stood back here, you wouldn't see me fidget quite as much. So, before I answer your question, Susie, in order to try and calm myself down a little bit more, I'll tell you a little quick story about a conversation I had with my daughters before I came here. So my youngest one is 11, and I was picking her up from swim practice on Tuesday night, explaining to her that her mom would be picking her up on Wednesday. And she said, well, where are you going to be? And I said, well, I'm going back to Kansas. She goes, oh, that's when you're going to Washburn to speak. And I said, yeah. And she said, are your mom and dad going to be there? I said, yeah. She said, is Grandma Jane going to be there? And I said, yeah. She said, are you going to know anybody else there? And I said, yeah, I think I will. And she looked at me and said, good luck with that, Dad. I wrestled with that for a while. And I said, do you have any other advice for me? She thought about it, and she said, mind you, this is an 11-year-old. It's 9 o'clock at night. We're on the way home. Got to get her dinner. Got to get her to do her homework before she goes to bed. And she said, make sure you look nice. She goes, you don't want to embarrass yourself. I said, okay. So then Wednesday morning, it's about 6:30. I'm ushering my daughter along, trying to get her on the bus, and reminded her that I would see her on Friday. And she goes, oh, that's right. This is when you go back and speak at Washburn. I said, yeah. Do you have any advice for me? She said, she didn't say good luck with that. She said, yeah, don't embarrass yourself because there might be people there that I know. So, I got that going for me. right, so I feel a little better now. You know, in response to your question, Susie, I was very fortunate growing up in Topeka. I know it may sound cliche, but there's something to be said about that Midwestern work ethic that runs through the community, as well as the family values that are so strong here. Same thing can be said about Washburn as well. At Washburn, I was surrounded with some very bright, intelligent, goal-oriented students. I was exposed to professors and faculty members that were exceptional and readily available at all times of the day for their students' needs. I learned about perseverance. I learned that I needed to challenge myself daily. Too many people, I think, go through life and operate in survival mode. I learned about the power of knowledge and self-development that doesn't end when you leave the four walls of the institution. I'm constantly learning and growing daily. Today it's a little bit different. It might be through seminars, conferences, or it might be books that I read. But I'm always trying to push myself outside of my own comfort zone. I was involved in the Phi Delta Theta fraternity while I was here on campus. Through my time at the fraternity, I was exposed to some exceptional leaders and individuals that taught me the importance of giving back to the community. In many ways, being nice is serving others, and you succeed when you help others. This type of servant leadership has served me well. I learned the importance of networking, albeit at the time I probably referred to it as socializing. This skill is critical, though, to allow you to grow and move forward with your career. Whether it's contacts within your own organization or industry, or contacts outside of that. Part of being a good networker is being able to broker introductions, gain mentors and sponsors along the way that are critical to help you grow and succeed. I also learned, or I guess the final thing I learned, was the importance of your own brand. And this probably is more important to students today than it was 25 years ago. We didn't have social media and things like that when I was in school. And with the prevalence of that, your brand is who you are, and you have to protect it as you go forward into the world.
Tell us how you got your start at Walgreens, and when did you realize you wanted to stay with the company and make it a career?
Sure. So I began in October of 1993. I was a senior here at Washburn at the time, and I was a management trainee. I spent about 2 years in this role before I became an executive assistant manager. Initially, in the beginning, while I was finishing up my degree here, I thought I would get some exposure. I'd never worked retail before, and I thought, well, maybe I can graduate, move to Chicago, and work in the corporate office. After 5 years as an executive assistant manager, I became exposed to more things. I began to be given more responsibilities. I was then promoted to a store manager, and it was really, as I progressed with my leadership roles through the company, that I realized I always wanted to own my own business or start my own business. And as a store manager and as a leader in the organization, I really was given the autonomy to run that store as if I was the owner. I was able to act as if, and the whole concept of acting as if is something I believe in a lot. And I really try and push my team and get them to push their team members to act as if they're owners versus renters or squatters, because you're going to make decisions differently. It's going to drive engagement. It's going to empower them. It'll really get them invested in the organization. I was a store manager for approximately 7 years, and then I became a district manager. As a district manager, my role shifted a little bit. I went from being responsible for one individual location to 23, and then at the end of the 8 years, I had 40 locations I was responsible for. As a district manager and having 40 plus direct reports, was a whole different set of challenges. I wasn't able to spend the time that I needed to with my high performers and develop them and help them be successful in guiding them through their career. Most of my time was spent dealing with outliers and coaching them and trying to bring them forward. In 2015, I transitioned into my current role as Director, Retail and Pharmacy Operations, where I now am P&L for 63 stores, and they contribute greater than $500 million in revenue.
You know, climbing the corporate ladder sometimes means making sacrifices. What kinds of sacrifices have you had to make during your career?
So, once I got promoted to store manager, I had the ability to go out and I was entrusted to go out and come to career fairs at Washburn, participating in interviewing events, and interact with students and bring them on as interns or hire them. And the thing that I always told them was, I can sit up here and tell you all the wonderful things about the job. And there's a couple people here in the room who I've participated in some of these interviews with, and they've said the same things. But I'd rather tell you reality. And so reality is that retail's not a glamorous job. It's a lot of hard work. It's nights, it's weekends, it's holidays, it's time away from family. But it can be very rewarding both personally, professionally, and financially. You know, when you think about sacrifices, I started working here in Topeka. The first store I was promoted to as a store manager was in Salina, Kansas. I could have moved, I could have relocated, I didn't. I still remember it was 110 miles from my front door to the front door of the store. Fortunately, I only did that for about 8 months before I came back to Topeka. Before I got promoted to district manager, part of the process in the agreement was I had to be willing to relocate anywhere in the United States to take this promotion. It's a foreign concept to some people. Most people are willing to relocate, but they know where they're going to go to. So I went through a training process during the month of June. At the end of June, I was assigned a mentor in Madison, Wisconsin, where I spent about 6 weeks. You know, all the while knowing that we were going to be moving, but we didn't know where we were going to go. And then eventually it was, I got a call on a Friday afternoon, I went to Chicago, I flew home that night, and then told my wife and said, yeah, I'll be in Cincinnati starting on Monday. So, you know, today the sacrifices are a little different and a little less frequent. I do travel. Fortunately, I control it, how frequently and when I do it. And I rarely miss any of my girls' activities or family events.
In October, you'll celebrate 23 years with Walgreens. How has the company changed during that time?
So in 1993, there were approximately 1,000 Walgreens drugstores across the country. The 90s were a time of accelerated expansion and growth. By 1997, there were over 2,200 locations. And we had a goal at that time of 3,000 stores by 2000. The bulk of the growth done during this time was organic in nature. In 1996, sales for the company were $11.7 billion. At the end of fiscal 2015, they were $103 billion. During the 90s and early 2000s, our strategy was simple, it was grow. Our leadership style was one of command and control. We were one of the best in the industry at execution. At our peak, we were opening a store every 17 hours. As we entered the mid-2000s, things began to change significantly. Things changed within the industry. Walmart came out with $4 generics. CVS acquired a PBM and Caremark. They created limited networks. There was the Medicare Modernization Act. And a couple companies by the name of Amazon and Google significantly changed the way retailing was done in America. We had to change the way we operate a community pharmacy. Walgreens now is a wholly owned subsidiary of Walgreens Boots Alliance. As a company, we have presence in more than 25 countries. We're a global pharmacy-led health and well-being retailer with over 13,100 locations across the world. We've changed from a business that had one primary revenue stream, which was our retail stores and was driven by our pharmacies, into a business that has unmatched supply chain and procurement, a portfolio of retail and business brands, diversified and robust profit pools that extend across the U.S., Europe, and emerging markets. I'd say there's been a significant amount of change in those last 23 years.
You know, now you're really more than just a pharmacy. You know, many of your locations now include healthcare clinics. And can you tell us, you know, explain the concept and strategy associated with these new clinics?
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. All projections point to the fact that there's going to be a shortage of primary care physicians over the next 10 years. And depending upon what you read, that shortage may be 12,000, it may be significantly higher than that. The healthcare clinics provide a solution for our patients and for our customers. They provide affordable healthcare for those in underserved areas, those that cannot afford other options, and sometimes, quite frankly, those that are starved for time. If any of you try to make an appointment at your primary care physician recently, you know that you can't just call today and get in this afternoon. So it is a solution for our customers, but it also helps relieve pain points for primary care physicians, hospitals, emergency rooms, and urgent care centers as well too. Initially it was acute diagnosis that they were doing. They have transitioned into more chronic disease state management as well. In some areas we've partnered with Medicare providers, or not Medicare providers, but Medicaid providers to serve as a point of contact or a primary care for those that don't currently have a primary care physician as well.
And the Affordable Care Act, surely that's somehow impacted how you guys are doing business now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's impacted anybody that operates a pharmacy from the standpoint of it's increased our access to lives. So prior to the Affordable Care Act, if you look at the Census Bureau data, there was approximately 15.7% of the population that was uninsured. Since that time, it's now about 9.2%. So there's an additional 6% of the population that's insured. The benefit of that is twofold. As an insured individual, if you're sick, you're more likely to go to the doctor and get on to a medication regimen that will help you manage that chronic disease state. You'll be going to a pharmacy. You'll be introduced to a pharmacist who can provide you with a comprehensive medical review to help drive adherence and ultimately decrease your risk or your exposure for developing another chronic disease state, thus lowering healthcare spend in the future.
Tell us what you like most about your job, your work at Walgreens.
The best thing about the job is the people. I like the fact that it's something different every day. It challenges me in so many different ways, but I love the ability to spend time with individuals, get to know them, find out what they want to do, help teach, help develop, and help guide them towards their ultimate goal in their career as well. That's definitely the most rewarding part about it. You know, I go back to the beginning when you asked me the question about how did I know this was something I wanted to do. You know, the other piece is that, you know, I don't know if there's a true entrepreneurial spirit that I had, but I always had a desire to have my own business or start it or buy something. You know, in this role, I'm really fortunate that I'm able to operate this business as if it was my own.
All righty, I'm sure there's some other folks in the audience that have questions. I had the first few. Got one here from one of our nursing faculty.
So I was wondering, who runs your healthcare clinics? Who is your provider that's there at the healthcare clinic?
Okay, so about 2007, we bought a company called Take Care Health. Since that time, we've rebranded them. In the majority of the areas, there's a firewall between them and between the company, if you will, the proverbial firewall, but they are part of the Walgreen Company, and they have individuals that go out, recruit, hire nurse practitioners to staff them. In some areas, it's required by law that they actually have physicians, but the majority of them are nurse practitioners. I think that answers your question. Okay.
Other questions? What about any questions from students? We have some pre-pharmacy students here. We have some business students. And she'll be speaking in some classes later today. Get one from Nikki.
Make Susie walk and run.
Susie, I think there's a question.
Phil Donahue. Phil Donahue.
Colby, you mentioned the difference that the market's changed with the introduction of Amazon and Google. What are you guys doing from that retail perspective where everybody wants something right away? How is Walgreens responding to that?
So, Walgreens in a lot of ways was very late to the .com piece, but now we've really developed a robust, what I believe is almost best-in-class platform, and is really focused on that omni-channel, whether it's different businesses that we have, or whether it's simply our own Walgreens app, which you can do so many things from clipping and downloading coupons to your phone, so when you check out, you can get the lowest possible price, to shopping for products, ordering online, having them delivered to you at home, to managing your prescriptions. You can scan your bottles for refills. You can get text messages to let you know when your prescription's ready. At the end of the day, I think the answer to your question is that there is still a segment of the population that likes that personal interaction. And that's the biggest challenge we have, and that's trying to differentiate from a service and from a convenience standpoint that you can't get from an Amazon.
Yeah, Mike.
Colby, what's the next major challenge that you are preparing for at Walgreens?
Good question. I think the biggest challenge right now, and I think everybody would agree with this, is the rising costs of healthcare. I think that the only way companies like Walgreens or other companies can lower costs to healthcare, I think there has to continue to be vertical integration within the industry. Most recently, we announced a partnership with an organization that was going to provide us with drugs directly, eliminate a middleman. Some of those drugs were going to be discounted up to 90% of the cost, allowing us to pass along those savings to consumers as well. So I think the big challenge, and to answer your question, is how do we impact rising healthcare costs? Other ways we can do that is probably about 9 years ago, we started the process of providing immunizations within our stores, flu shots. We used to have nursing clinics that would come in and provide flu shots. Now all of our pharmacists are able to provide immunizations. It's grown past flu shots though. Studies show that for every dollar spent at retail on immunizations, it saves approximately $6.45 for future healthcare costs, be it doctor's visits, medication, hospital visits. So those are some of the ways we're trying to change community pharmacy to lower it. We also have programs where we provide comprehensive medical reviews to really drive adherence to patients. If people are more adherent to their drug regimen, they have less likelihood of developing another chronic disease state, thus lowering overall healthcare spend as well.
Okay. Dr. Farley?
I think you hear me. How do you identify the next generation of employees that you are seeking and leaders that you're seeking? And how can we better prepare and help these students that are here be a part of that?
That's a great question that I don't know that I can do justice to. I think that the education that's provided from an institution like Washburn is second to none. I am very fortunate to have spent my time here and got my degree from the university. I learned a lot while I was here. And I don't anticipate that that's changed much in the last 25 years. The bigger challenge is that when you look at the young men and women as they're graduating college today, and this is just a fact, if you look at online job providers, Indeed, there is more retail opportunities now than there's ever been in history. There is less clicks on those retail opportunities than any other job. So the different question may be to ask, how do we get those individuals interested in those retail type opportunities that can expand into such a myriad of possibilities? I think the university does a great job in getting those young men and women ready to be leaders in whatever field they go into. I don't think many of them think of retail right away. And hopefully, I guess by me standing up here, I can show that there's a lot of different opportunities and possibilities within the retail sector.
Jim, can you just belt out your question? Talk loud enough.
Just wanted to ask you, you mentioned a lot about the innovations you made in providing affordable health care, improving healthcare conditions for people. How does Walgreens reconcile that with the sale of cigarettes?
Good question. It's a very common question that I hear and I know is brought up constantly as well. In addition to, cigarettes are a choice, much like alcohol is a choice as well. In addition to the sale of cigarettes, though, we also offer many smoking cessation products as well, and we offer services to help those that are patients that want to quit smoking, and we can help set them up with those as well. It's a choice, and as long as our consumers want it and are telling us they want it, we are continuing to provide it, but it is something that's looked at quite frequently, and it's something that's discussed a lot.
Okay, one final question, and then we're going to have to wrap things up. Gene?
Yes, as a provider of healthcare and pharmaceutical services, you are entrusted with a lot of patient information that's confidential. How secure is that data? And I want to add that a lot of companies claim their data is secure, and it's said that everybody has been hacked, or they divided into two categories: those that have been hacked and those that have been hacked and they don't know it.
It's a good question. That is very sensitive information that you're talking about and addressing there. So we haven't been hacked. So I guess that means, based upon what you said, we've been hacked and we don't know. I feel very confident about our systems and our security. We have not had any breach like that from the outside. All of our employees that are entrusted with that patient-protected information go through annual training that is very comprehensive as well, so that they understand what they can and what they can't do with regards to discussing or sharing information.
Okay, we better wrap things up. So, big round of applause for Colby. Appreciate you being here today. We've got a special gift of thanks for you, Colby. I'll set here for you. Appreciate it. And then we're going to draw for a few door prizes. Okay? I'm just going to draw them out here for